Welcome, welcome. It's your boy Radzi. I just want to share my testimony today with y'all. I'm excited because it's Sunday, man. I just came from church and I'm about to relax. Super Bowl Sunday. But yeah, so I'm mainly excited about the fellowship that we're going to have today. Just brothers coming together, enjoy some food, and just, fellowship with each other and learn from each other. So to begin with my testimony, where do I begin? It's such a long testimony, but I'm gonna keep it short. I'm gonna keep it within the 5 year range because if I go way back, man, y'all not ready for all that. So definitely, where did my testimony start? So I got to a point in my life where I was kind of just tired of some of the things that I was doing. I used to go partying with my friends and got into some weed, smoking weed, and doing all this other stuff. And now I remember while I was doing it during that time, I knew that it was vanity. I knew it was meaningless, exactly, because even before that, I was reading the book of Ecclesiastes, and as I was doing these things, I was like, man, I know these things, they're pointless, but I keep finding myself doing these things again. I I actually wanted a way out, but I just didn't know how I was going to start. Because sometimes, if you are a believer and sometimes you're walking on the fence, getting out of that's the difficult way because you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's ahead of you. If all your friends are in the world and you're trying to get out of the world, you really don't know what's ahead of you. Because if you leave your friends, you feel like, oh man, if I leave my friends, then I might be by myself. I'm not going to have any more friends. So what happened with me? So during that time, and I remember I would pray to God basically to lead me and to guide me. I didn't know how to get out of it and how what God really wanted me to do, but I was just kind of tired of the whole party scene and just doing all this other stuff. And now I remember, God was pruning my heart. God was probing my heart. The Bible says no one comes to the Father unless the Father draws them. So you don't really, most of the times, remember, it's not by our choice or our decision. We do make a decision, but God actually pulls us, and He's always pulling at us. He's always pulling at us, and but sometimes we don't see it. We don't see Him pulling us. So I guess during that time, God was actually pulling me, and so during that time, I found myself searching for something more than what this life was offering me. I saw all the vanity in a lot of things. And I remember getting some of my accomplishments. I play golf, so I won my first golf tournament, and then it was like I got this euphoria from winning it. But then afterwards, it was like, man, that's it. It's gone. I won a tournament, but that's it. That's all there is to it. So I was like, okay, even if I go ahead and win even more, this feeling will soon fade away. I was trying to find something to hold on to in my life. I wanted to find that everlasting joy within life. I wanted to find something that was substantial, something that I could hold on for a while, because it seems like everything that I got a hold of was fleeting, whether it was a relationship, whether it's things that I thought would give me joy. Every time I thought I had it, it would just slip out of my hands. During that time, I was also doing a lot of searching. I was searching. I knew there was a power out there. And keep in mind, I grew up in the church. I was a Christian, so-called Christian, fence Christian on the fence. So I would go to party on Saturday, and then on Sunday I'll go to church. I still went to church though. And not to say that, I'm proud of, going to a party and then going to church. Every time I went to church on Sunday, the preacher was talking directly to me. You know how it is. If you were in the world and you went to church on Sunday, when you come to church after a long night, the preacher is always talking to you. The message is directed towards you. It seems like he's talking directly at you. So that's how it was for me. Every time I did those things, I come back to church and I'm like, oh man, he's talking directly to me, man. I gotta get out of this, man. But one thing about me, I was always consistent in church. I knew I needed church. I knew that's one place I really needed. That's the hospital for me, because I knew if I stayed out completely, I was going to be a lost cause. During this time of searching, also I remember one of my best friends, and he was going to go to this mountain trip where is going to be dedicated towards God, seeking God and everything else like that. I remember him calling me. I think he called me or text me or something like that. And I was like, yo, Razi, do you want to come to this mountain trip? It's going to be like, we're going to leave Friday and it's going to be Saturday, Sunday, and we're going to come back on Sunday. It's a 3-day trip. And he told me, yeah, I think he told me we're going to be praying, fasting. I never prayed and fasted. I don't think he told me that yet, but I was like, first I was like, nah, I can't come, man. I got to work. But then I was like, man, what do I have to lose, man? Just go to the mountain trip. Just ask, for a couple of days off from your boss. So I asked for a couple of days and it was smooth, I was able to go. So we ended up going to this mountain trip, right? And it was the first time, that I was ever going to fast. And during this time also, or we were going to be spending a lot of time in God's presence. So it was new to me. So we got to the mountain trip, and we did a lot of prayer and fasting. We were like in a conference room, and we stayed in there almost the whole day, just like praying and fasting. I never did anything like that. It really showed me another aspect, of actually seeking God and pressing on seeking God's face. And we did all the things, fasting and prayer. We prayed so much, and I think the first time there were probably about 12 or 15 people there. So, and the presence of God was there. I couldn't deny it. But then towards the end of the trip, it was the last day of the trip before we were getting ready to leave. So one of the leaders there asked, write down something that you want to see God doing in your own personal life. And during that time, I wrote down, I want God to speak to me personally. I was tired of people telling me who God was, people telling me that they hear from God and God speaks to them personally. And then when I read the Bible, when I got the chance to read it, I always see that God always came through in a miraculous way and revealed himself to certain people. You got Moses in the burning bush, you got God speaking to people in the Old Testament, and even in I guess some points in the New Testament, he's also speaking to people, sending angels to people. So I was like, man, if he's really there, then he needs to speak to me personally. I don't want to hear it from a preacher. I don't want to hear it from anybody else. He needs to speak to me the way that I understand. So that what was going on with me. I left the mountain trip. I came back to my normal life, and I was still doing a lot of research. I was really trying to find out if Christianity was legit, if it was really, really, really real, if it had that power. I mean, keep in mind, I grew up in a Christian home, but I just never really cared enough to ask all these questions. My grandmother took me to church almost every Sunday, and I was a little bit inquisitive, but I didn't care enough to ask more questions. So even though I had grown up in the Christian faith, I was still trying to find out, because one question that really troubled me was when I read the Bible during that time, I wasn't a all-in Christian. So I was trying to find out, if the Bible says the only way to God is through Jesus Christ, and if you don't follow Jesus Christ, you're condemned. Basically, you're condemned. The only way to get to heaven is through Jesus Christ. So in my mind, these questions started coming up in my mind. So I'm telling you, so are the Muslims wrong? Are all these other people, are they wrong? So if they're not following Jesus, what's their destiny? So that really troubled me. So I was like, man, I really have to find out the truth. Because if this thing is true, then I need to be fully following it all the way. And if it's not, then I'm out. That's just the way that I saw it. And so back to the story, after the mountain trip, nothing really happened. So nothing big really happened after like 3 weeks or something like that. So I kind of went back to my old life. I was still struggling with the same sins, and, I knew it was wrong. Even some of the sins I was committing, you know how you feel after you did something wrong, your spirit tells you that it's wrong. So I knew that it was wrong. So I kind of went back, and I remember 3 weeks later, I work as a nurse assistant, so I was sitting with my patient, and it was like I'm a night sitter, so I was sitting with my patient 3 a.m. in the morning. He was already in bed, and as I'm sitting on the couch, one of my best friends sends me a song, a reggae song, and it was speaking directly to me in regards to what I was going through that time. I was doing a lot of searching. I got into all the esoteric stuff. I got into a lot of dark stuff that I was researching. I knew there was a power out there, but I wanted to find out where the power was. So I was doing a lot of research. I wanted to find out, how did the pyramids get created? What's up with all the, burned scrolls and all this other stuff. So I wanted to find all that out. So I wanted to know more about constellations and the stars and all this other stuff, palm readings. I was like, what's going on? So I wanted to know all that stuff. So he sends me a song, and it's speaking directly to me. Keep in mind, I never told him that I was doing all the searching or I was looking around or anything like that. So he sends me a song, and it's speaking directly to me, and it's 3 a.m. in the morning. So it kind of puzzled me. So I'm thinking, what is going on here? So I was like, okay, it's just a coincidence, so I'm not really going to look into it too much. And then he sends me another song, and it's different song, but same message, speaking directly to me. And I'm like, wow. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I was like, okay, it's just a coincidence, man. It's 2 songs, but then I couldn't shake it off, so I had to call him. I called him up. I think during that time it was late. He sent me that song, and then I was like, "Yo, man, what's going on? Why did you send me those songs?" He's like, "Man, I know you like reggae, so I figured I'd just send you the song. I thought you would like it." So I was like, "Okay, all right, 2 songs, whatever." So I hung up the phone and then went back to chilling. It was 3 a.m. in the morning, and I'm a sitter, so I'm just in the living room, just relaxing, whatever. And then my patient, who had dementia and a stroke on half his side, he never speaks during the night. So during that time, he starts speaking in his sleep. So I was like, what's going on? So I go to his room and he's just speaking. And then I start asking him questions, and during that time, he starts speaking directly to me. And it was so eye opening, because right then in that moment, I realized that God was speaking to me. God was reaching out to me. And my patient, when he was speaking directly to me in the situation that I was going through also. And almost at that time, it seemed like he was prophesying on what God wanted me to do in my life and how he wanted me to help people also. So he just keeps speaking, and I'm speaking to him directly. And it was so mind blowing, because at that moment I knew I was talking directly to God. He was just using him as a vessel to speak to me. And that was so amazing to me. And after that, I had gotten this revelation from God, and I knew that was God. And when it was happening, when I'm speaking to this guy, I knew that this was God completely speaking to me, because there were like three signs, and I was definitely convinced. So what happened afterwards, during that time, my friend also, God was working on him also. And so I called him. I was like, man, I think God has been speaking to me, man. He's been trying to speak to me. And then he tells me, yeah, man, some things have been happening in my life too. And I think God is trying to speak with me also. So he's telling me things that are going on in his life, and things are happening in my life. So I'm like, okay, I'm excited. So we decided to take the whole thing, the Bible thing and the church thing, and our relationship with God seriously. So we started reading the Bible more. So we organized it to a point where he picked a book in the Bible, I picked one. So I think I picked Matthew, and he picked Hosea. So on the days of the week, we would alternate. So we'll read Hosea chapter 1. Then the next day we'll read Matthew chapter 1. Then the next day we'll read Hosea chapter 2. And we kept on alternating until we finished the whole book of Matthew and Hosea. And then after that, as we kept on seeing the power of God move while we were doing those Bible studies, I remember at times God would give me dreams on some of the things that he was going through, and then I'll call him up. I'm like, yo, bro, what's going on, man? I just had this crazy dream. Are you all right? And he's like, yeah, man, you won't believe what I was going through and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, man, I just had a dream, and this is what's happening. And some of the dreams were real vivid, and I could feel him, and God was speaking to me directly during that time, and it felt like more like an intimate relationship. And during that time, I would come home from school. I remember I would come home from school, and all I wanted to do was pray. And I was staying with my roommates. Just most of the times I'll come in my room, shut my room door, and get down to prayer, man. Spend some time in prayer, and just because I wanted to experience God, the power of God, I wanted to seek the face of God. And during that time, it was something that was truly amazing to me, and it totally blew my mind. So we reading the Bible, and afterwards we saw, when we were reading the Bible, we saw that there were a lot of people in the Bible, to get closer to God, they fasted. You know, Moses fasted, you know, Daniel fasted. You got all these people fasting. Jesus fasted for 40 days. So we were so excited. We're like, bro, we should go on a 40-day fast. And I was like, yeah, bro, let's do it. Let's go on this 40-day fast. Yes. So we're all hyped. Hey, we're going to go on a 40-day fast, this, that, and the other. So my friend, being the person who he is, Sam, right? Sam being the person who he is, he's like, yeah, he starts looking up places. This is where we can go. He's like a real go-getter. He's trying to find out where we can go to do this 40-day fast. So we look at a couple places. We found one place in the mountains, and we're like, yeah, okay, we got this place. So they tell us the amount of money costs for a day to stay there. So it was like way over our budget, probably like $4,000 or $5,000. And I was like, man, we don't even have that much money. So in his mind, he's thinking, oh man, we're not going to be able to do this, so he's trying to back out. I was like, nah, man, let's do it. Let's do 7 days. Let's do 7 days at least. So it was like, all right. So we go to the place. We drove to Asheville, probably like a 3-hour drive. We drove over there, and then we go talk to the people. You know, they tell us the price. It's going to be 7 days. We check out the place. It's beautiful, man, right on top of a mountain, and the drive up there was amazing. And the cabin that we're staying in was right beside a stream, so you can sleep in your bed and you can hear the water rushing by, man. And they had like a little trail that you could follow the stream down, and it was awesome. So after that, we got the money together, and when it was time, we had scheduled a day when we were going to do the trip. It was time to go to the trip. We got our money together. let's go to Asheville. We drive up there. I mean, we jamming music in the car. We getting in some gospel. We just so hyped. So I'm playing some African music and whatever it was. So it was good. So we get there, right? And then the two ladies it was a lady and a man. They were married and they ran the place. So as soon as we get there, we're like, yeah, we here, and we're getting ready to pay the money. And then they said, you guys don't worry about it. God told us not to charge y'all anything. Ain't God good, bro? Ain't God good? I'm telling you. So he said, God told us not to charge y'all anything for the 7 days that we're going to stay there. It's like, if you need anything, you can come to us and you can ask anything. We'll give you anything. Since we're fasting, they even try to offer us food, but we're like, no, we fasting. So we get there. We're doing our fast thing and getting closer to God. I never I never thought about I'll ever fast for that long or even go to a place just to fast and seek God. So we get to this mountain trip, get the room, we staying there. It was awesome. And during that time, I think we really drew closer to God, and God began to reveal some things about his power, himself, and through the word, and just getting to know him more. I remember one specific instance while we were there at the mountain trip. We used to go towards the evening with the family that owned the place to pray with them, right? And so we would have like a quiet time to hear what God was trying to say. And I remember one specific day we went there. As we were sitting in their living room, and after having the quiet time, close our eyes and do this whole thing. And there are different types of people who stay in that mountain area, the large places, not just for Christians. That's what they had said. And we sitting there having a quiet time, and God is showing me something, almost like a vision or something as I close my eyes. So I'm seeing skulls, I'm seeing skeletons, right? And I'm like, am I tripping? And I never had something like that. Most times when I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh man, it's just my mind. It's just my mind going out there or whatever. So it's no really big deal, right? So then they asked, did anybody see anything? So I really didn't say anything because I didn't really think much of it. I was like, man, maybe I'm just imagining it in my head or something like that. So we end up leaving, going back to our rooms. And then my friend, I guess he had, my best friend Sam, he got to have a conversation with the family. So he starts asking them, who are the people who come here, and they got to have a conversation. And they found out that one of the ladies who was in the room and we were having the quiet time praying was a medium. So she basically contacted the dead. He talks to the dead, basically. So I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, during that time, remember when we were in there, I had visions of, skeletons and stuff like that. So that's what that was. That's what God was trying to tell me. And I think that was the first time we met with them. And God was telling me she contacts the dead, whatever. So the skeletons and everything else, that made sense at that point. And my friend was basically telling me, yo, you have to, man, you got to speak up, man. If God shows you something, you got to speak up. I was like, man, I wasn't sure what it was. So during that time, that's when the journey had already begun, but it was just like taking off, man, and I was excited about it. So, and we ended up leaving the 7th day. God showed me some things that I wrote down at the end of the mountain trip, wrote it down in my journal, and all these things that were going on and how God was moving. Came back to home to Durham, and then, God just started placing certain things my way and my friend's way, and we just started, taking more chances and heading towards God. When God opened up a door, especially when it was serving or trying to do something to increase our relationship or even my relationship, I would take that chance. So that's when the growth kept on coming. Any challenge, you would take it. And then I remember just God probing my heart to share the gospel more, and I took it upon myself. And when I saw other people doing it, that encouraged me. So when I would go to the barber shop, or when I would go to the store or something like that, God would press it upon my heart to share the gospel in the most tough situations. And I remember when I was actually obedient, I would see the power of God just move and how people would react. So that was just amazing and just powerful to me. So that's how the journey began. And now it's like, I guess 2.5 years later, 3 years later from the mountain trip, man, and God is still moving. I'm still growing, and the intimate relationship with God is something that I value, man. It's so important, and it's one thing I want everyone to have. If someone doesn't have an intimate relationship with God, man, you don't know what you're missing out on. You got to give your life to Christ, man. That's and I think I found that thing which was missing, which I was trying to find in the world. It says there's a hole in your heart, but we're trying to fill it with everything else, fill it with all this other stuff, but all that stuff is just going to leave you even more empty. That hole can only be filled by Christ. So if you're out there and you're looking, and you feel this emptiness, man, and you don't know what's going to fill it, man, look into Christ. save you a lot of time. Start with Jesus Christ, man, because he is the way, the truth, and the life. Definitely, he's changed my life. Well, y'all have a blessed day, and I'm so happy I got to share my testimony, and I hope it wasn't too long. And sometimes I get to rambling, so I hope it wasn't too rambly. So I hope everybody's blessed with this. And if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ in your life, man, you gotta do it. You gotta accept this. You gotta accept the Savior. You gotta accept the gift. You gotta have the gift. Definitely, I'm blessed. All right, y'all have a blessed day. This is your boy Rodzy. I'll catch y'all later.